This 2023 NFC West Division betting preview of the NFL Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks, content, and contests, including our NFL Wins Total contest with a $1,000 prize. Join today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Welcome, everyone, to the NFL Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is August the 1st, currently 12:05 on the East Coast. The first division preview for the upcoming NFL season. And I had to kick it off with the best division, or my favorite friend of the network. But first, joining me here, hey, Rod, we are back, my friend. How's it going?
It has been too long since that beautiful face of yours has been on my screen enough. I am stoked to be back and breaking down some NFL content with you. And I'm excited because this is my first on-camera experience with Katie. I get to host with her. And, man, we both are Niners fans, which you'll find out as the show progresses. But we also found out that we don't live too far away from each other. So I feel like beer and a Niners game is in our future because we got to cheer together. So.
Oh, 100%. Rod, you're too kind. I have the face up for radio. So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. But
not true. The world needs to see that beard.
Oh, yeah.
The world deserves
right now,
beard.
it's not room. This is, just wait for NFL season when I go visit my barber and he cleans me up very nicely. I don't look as homeless as he likes to say sometimes. I haven't seen him for a couple months. But you guys heard the voice. I had to kick off the division previews with our favorite friend, not even a guest, she's our friend of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, president of the 49ers fan club, I must say that. Okay. It's host of the MoxieBets. You can also find her on the PickSixPod. You can find her on CBS Sports and also on SportsLine. Katie Mox. Katie, how's it going?
Fellas, it's going well. Thank you so much for having me on today. You know, I always love to talk 49ers and love to trash the other teams in the NFC West. So I'm excited to be here. And Munaf, it's very interesting and funny that you said I was the president of the 49ers fan club. So funny story. I was a season ticket holder for the 49ers for about 7 years until I moved here to the East Coast for work. Even though I lived in LA, I was flying up for all of the home games. And it just so happened that it was a Monday night football game. I'm up cheering on my feet, as you know I would be. And the team photographer, something took a picture of me, ended up on the website. And then my friend that works in football ops for the Niners was like, hey, did you know that you're in the program? And I was like, oh, I'm in the program. I am the face of the Faithfulistas, which is, and I'm not even in the Faithfulistas. They took my photo of me cheering. I have to find it. It's actually behind me in one of these books. But I am now the face of the Faithfulistas, which is the women's group for the 49ers, which I just think is like hysterical. So I am actually the president. And I was like, they should invite me into the Faithfulistas. Like nobody even reached out to me, and you're using me in your ad.
Hey, we're gonna have to figure that out and get you your proper
give me an honorary membership.
Yeah, there we go, something like that. Maybe not go to the Ring of Honor in the stadium, but we got to figure something out. I'll put Rod up to that task since he's closer to the area than I am. But hey, NFC West, like I mentioned, we'll go through each team, and I jokingly said it before the show that we'll probably spend like 20 minutes combined on the other three teams. We'll spend about 30 minutes talking about the 49ers.
Hell yeah.
Because it's pretty much that is what this division is right now, right? We have two teams in the Rams and at least the Cardinals that at least one team looks like they're in rebuilding mode. And then you have the Rams that pretty much mortgaged their entire future when they did trade for Matthew Stafford and made their Super Bowl run and got the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago. But let's just kick it off with the Arizona Cardinals for this upcoming season. They have a win total right now of 4.5 wins. Division odds of 25-1 for them to make the playoffs. It's 11-1. Conference odds 100-1 and 200-1 to win the Super Bowl. So that word kind of tells you what the odds makers thinks of this Cardinals team. Obviously, the big story is Kyler Murray. He did suffer the torn ACL last season in Week 14 against the Patriots. And from everything I've read, and I'm sure Katie and Rod will expand on this as well, is that they're not in a rush to bring Kyler Murray back. And I know ACLs typically take anywhere from 8 to 12 months to recover from fully. Obviously, a new head coach in Jonathan Gannon, new coordinators, and a lot of roster turnover as well. Rod, why don't you lead us off with the Arizona Cardinals, 4.5? I mean, a lot of people in the bookmakers obviously are expecting this team to probably have the number 1 pick, or at least a top 3 pick in next year's draft. I know Caleb Williams, the USC quarterback, is going to be the highly coveted quarterback for the next year's draft, but I think it's going to come to a point for this team is that, hey, do they want to move forward with Kyler Murray? Because they paid him a lot of money last offseason to that contract of 5 years, $230 million. It's going to come to a decision point. Hey, do we want Kyler Murray or do we move on and go in a different direction at the quarterback position? But thoughts on the Cardinals coming into the season, Rod?
You feel bad because you invest all that in Kyler Murray, and then what have you gotten so far out of it? You've gotten a lot of great storylines. You've got to watch the film storyline, and that's really about all you've got out of it. But listen, Munaf, it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball, who's catching the ball in Arizona. Yeah. I'm telling you right now, that wide receiving core is like a list of milk carton guys. I don't know who they are. Like Rondale Moore is probably the standout, right? Greg Dortch, Marquise Brown, yes, but which Marquise Brown are you getting? Like, this offense is atrocious no matter who's throwing the ball. So to win 4 games, I mean, look, defensively, that's fine, but you got to score points to win games. And I don't know that this offense, with or without Kyler Murray, is going to score any points.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going into this season, and I'm pulling up. I don't think they're favored in any game this season, no. And rightfully so, right? And again, there's going to be a big Week 11 game between the Texans and the Cardinals, and I've said this on multiple podcasts because the Texans traded for that number 3 overall pick with Arizona in this last year's draft, where they picked up Will Anderson, and the Texans actually traded their own first-round pick to the Cardinals in next year's draft. So the Texans are going to want to get that game. But for this NFC West, they're facing the AFC North this upcoming season and also the NFC East, right? I mean, 2 of the better divisions in the National Football League. But Katie, talk to me about the Arizona Cardinals.
Look, they have the lowest win total in the division. It was 5. It's been bet down to 4.5. And obviously, this is for a good reason. I don't see the Arizona Cardinals winning many games this season, even with such a low win total. And you think out of 17 games, it's got to be easy to win 5, right? But to what everybody we just said, Colt McCoy is your guy, potentially, right? You don't know when Kyler Murray is coming back. And it's very interesting to me because on the Pick Six podcast, we did this all 32 series where we had insiders from every single team come on. We had this guy, Johnny Venerable, come on and talk about the Cardinals. And obviously, he was of the glass half full. But what he said was interesting when looking at this win total is that let's say the Cardinals start out and they lose the first 5 games or 6 games, or maybe they win 1 game in on that. They're in no rush to bring Kyler Murray back at this point, right? You might as well but let's say they surprise people and win 3 games, 4 games, whatever it is. Then that timetable for Kyler Murray to come back is going to be a little bit more accelerated. And we did see that Kyler came out and he said, I don't want to rush anything. These things take time. We'll see how it goes. So it's either, if they start off and they're bad, hammer this under, which I'm hammering it either way, to be honest. But it is interesting that if they somehow surprise people in this rookie group of pass catchers and Colt McCoy, because we've seen some sparks in Colt McCoy here or there. Of course, he's not necessarily what he used to be. He's getting a little bit older. Then they may actually turn out winning some games. But Munaf, as you said, rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, rookie defensive coordinator. And let's not act like Gannon was a huge get for them. I think if you talk to Philadelphia fans, they're like, good riddance to Gannon. So you have him coming here and, look, maybe he's better than Cliff Kingsbury is. I just can't get behind this team. If anything, what I would bet is for them to have the lowest wins. And I believe that's at like plus 200 or plus 130 or 150 or something. I have to look that up. I don't know why it's not in my notes here, but Cardinals to have the least amount of wins this season is the only thing that I would bet on Arizona.
And it makes a lot of sense, right? And from everything, I agree with what you said about Kyler Murray is that, hey, let's say they start 0-3, 0-4, 1-5. You're probably going to want to end up sitting Kyler for the rest of the season, right? Especially when you're we're talking about ACLs and things like that, because there's no reason for him to be out there. Like at that point, you're not competing for anything, right? But even if he does come back, like you mentioned, Katie, that even if they start off, let's just say, a respectable 2-2 or 3-2. They get an upset win because, again, like we mentioned, they're underdogs in all 17 of their games for this upcoming season. Obviously, that may change if they do get Kyler Murray back. But, I mean, also from a roster perspective, and a lot of us, we read the football Bible of Warren Sharp. He has this positional unit ranking, the running back room, ranked 31st out of 32 teams. Front 7, 32, dead last. Secondary, 29 out of 32 teams. Head coach, rightfully so, Jonathan Gannon, like you mentioned, Katie, didn't really overall impress me when he was with Philly last season. He's ranked number 32 out of 32. Again, it's a rookie head coach. You mentioned it, rookie offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators as well. So it feels like this is just a transition year from what Cliff Kingsbury had for this team in the previous couple seasons, where they just didn't have a lot of success. And the interesting part about Kingsbury was that they got off to great starts in those first half of the season. Instead, that second half of the season, where they were absolutely atrocious. So, from everything I'm reading, that obviously everything with Jonathan Gannon has been a cultural shock for some of these players on the Arizona Cardinals. But from a pure roster perspective, this team is just not very good. And I think that, we talk about the positional rankings from Warren Sharp, I 100% agree with it. But there was not a lot for me to look at this Arizona Cardinals team. Brian, anything else to add about this Cardinals team?
So just to back Katie up on that, Arizona 2-1 for fewest wins. They are the favorite in that. 8-1 is the Tampa Bay right above them, Katie. That tells you miles of what the bookmakers are thinking about as far as what the Cardinals bring to the table this year.
Katie, anything else for the Cardinals?
No. The Cardinals are going to get swept in the division. The Cardinals are going to have the worst record. 2-1. Go ahead and take that bet right now, because I believe more in Baker Mayfield, which says a lot, and the Bucks than I do in this Cardinals team. I think they're going to start off slow, and then they're in no rush to bring him back. That is the only thing that I would bet on the Cardinals.
All right, before we get over to the Los Angeles Rams, let me tell everyone about the Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon. Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon is a perfect for the die-hard DGen. Sign up for the Patreon to get access to exclusive contests, including the NFL Win Totals contest with a $1,000 first place prize, plus a monthly SGP Stories podcast, an ad-free, uncensored show highlighting the best stories from decades of being DGens. There's even a Discord channel just for our patrons. The Sports Gambling Podcast has and always will give out all their picks for absolutely free. The Patreon is a great way to support the network and fight back against corporate gambling. Get all the details over at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Again, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. All right, moving over to the next team in this division, the Los Angeles Rams, 2 seasons removed from their Super Bowl victory. And again, last season, this team ended up with a 5-12 record. A lot of that had to do with injuries, right? Cooper Kupp was injured for a lot of the games. We also saw Matthew Stafford dealing with various injuries as well. And coming into this season, again, a team that I talked about at the top of the show that doesn't have a lot of draft capital because they traded a lot of it in some of the trades that they did make to make that Super Bowl run. Currently, their win total sits at 6.5. Their division odds are 10-1 for them to make the playoffs at +310. Conference odds are at 45-1, and Super Bowl odds are at 65-1. Katie, you want to lead us off with the Rams here? Again, we talk about the bottom 2 teams in this division, the Rams and the Cardinals. I think the only plus thing about this team is probably the head coach, Sean McVay. But other than that, there's a significant fall off after we talk about on this roster after Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and Matthew Stafford, if that. But thoughts on this Rams team?
Yeah, it's so funny, like, oh, how the mighty have fallen. And I'm not just talking about the Rams, I'm talking about the NFC West. There was a time where the NFC West was the best division in football. And now, outside of the 49ers and the Seahawks team that's actually having a resurgence here under Geno Smith, and I know we're going to get into that later, it's awful. I mean, the Cardinals suck and the Rams suck. And at the 6.5, I don't think I'm betting their win total, but I would definitely lean under here. And Munaf, you said it. They've got the boy wonder coach, which you can never really count out Sean McVay and his ability to draft some pretty amazing plays. And their offense is going to move the ball down the field. But it's like, okay, you've got Aaron Donald, maybe we're going to see one more year of him. You got Cooper Kupp. how much do we think that Matthew Stafford is going to play, right? Because I'm thinking about this kind of in the similar way that I was thinking about Kyler Murray, where it's like he's older, he's coming off some pretty serious injuries. I think we might see Stetson Bennett more if they start off slow and he's not doing well. There might be a little changing of the guard here to kind of save his health. So I lean under on this one. I don't have high hopes. They sold their souls for the Super Bowl and they got it. And it is going to be a while until we see the Rams as actual contenders again. Now they are going to win some games because they have Sean McVay and they have Cooper Kupp, and he's just going to be somewhere out there in the backfield, and you're going to be, out there in the field, and he's going to get the ball. So he's going to get some touchdowns. But from what I saw this morning, Matthew Stafford props are off the board right now. I haven't been able to find any, but I would probably take those unders because I think we're going to see Stetson Bennett at some point in the season.
And everything that I've seen, at least on the Twitterverse, or I should say Xverse, I should say now. Rod's laughing over there. We've seen some positive news, or I guess Stetson Bennett's turning some heads, at least in training camp, for the Los Angeles Rams thus far for the upcoming season. So you're right, Kay. We may see that, hey, if Stafford, again, has been injury prone throughout his career, at least when he's gotten here with the Rams. And again, he's getting up there in age as well, right? That if there comes to a point where this team is 3-7, 4-8, there's no reason to leave Matthew Stafford out there and have him get hurt. And let's just see what we have in Stetson Bennett, because he possibly could be the future quarterback of this Los Angeles Rams franchise. But I think that alone with Sean McVay as the head coach, that's worth a couple wins in there, because the way this guy preps, and we've seen the interviews from Sean McVay that he remembers a random play in week 7 against the Jaguars, like in the third quarter with 4 minutes left. He'll recite it. Yeah, he'll recite it. It's crazy. So 6.5. Yeah, I feel like that number is spot on. They could finish 7-10 or 6-11, right? Rod, take me away about the Rams. What are you thinking?
So they're going to get 2 wins against Arizona. Where are they going to find the other 5? That's really what it all boils down to, right? Where are they going to find the other 5 wins? They only got 5 wins last year, and Arizona was in their conference, so or in their division rather. So, like I said, if you give them 2 against Arizona, they got to find 5 more. This team may not find 5 altogether. I mean, it may be 2 and then 3 other on top of that. So, yeah, you're right though. This number is kind of it's a trap. I mean, and it's at what the over is at 105, minus 105. The under is at minus 115. That's a lot of juice to tie up in a season-long bet.
And then also, if you take a look in the offseason, they didn't spend a lot of money in free agency. I think they only signed 2 players in the offseason. And they also, this is another team like the Arizona Cardinals that had a lot of roster turnover, guys leaving, right? We saw Jalen Ramsey head over to the Miami Dolphins. Allen Robinson's gone. You take a look at the secondary. Bobby Wagner returns to Seattle. Troy Hill. Baker Mayfield led them to that 99-yard random win last season on Thursday Night Football. I believe it was against the Raiders, but a lot of roster turnover, especially in the secondary for this team. So I again, if you have a healthy Matthew Stafford, you have a healthy Cooper Kupp, that's a win. It's good for a couple games. And again, also the mess that has kind of been a lot of turnover has been in that running back group, right? Cam Akers, we saw at least over the past couple of seasons had some issues with fumbling, but he's back in that backfield for this team as well. But at 6.5, again, this is another team. If you look at it from a positional unit rankings, 31st in offensive line, 30th in running back. Receivers, 25th. If Cooper Kupp wasn't there, this team would probably be dead last as far as their wide receiver group. Their front 7 ranked number 31, and their secondary is ranked dead last. The only 2 green spots you see is Sean McVay, 6th best ranked head coach, and then Matthew Stafford right around league average at number 16. So it just kind of feels like we're probably going to see a repeat of what kind of transpired in this division last year, right? We saw where the Rams and the Cardinals were pretty much at the bottom, and then you have 2 teams at the top, the Seahawks and the Niners, that will probably be at that, at least we don't feel like the Niners will be that division winner, and then Seattle probably contending for another wild card spot like they did last year. But I really didn't have much love for this Rams team. Katie, anything else you want to add for this Rams team?
No.
Rod?
I will say that this reminds me of Thanos, and people are asking the Rams, you won the championship, but what did it cost you? And Thanos says everything. The Rams are saying it cost everything because now they're in a rebuilding season forever. And it's like, yeah, you got the championship, but what did it cost you? It cost them everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it really did.
But they got everything, I guess, at the same time, right? I mean, they got everything, and they had their Super Bowl at home. You know, it was so LA.
Says the Northern Californians.
I lived in LA for like 15 years. I know LA.
Well, thank God you're not a Lakers fan. That's all I got to say. Before we get over to the Seattle Seahawks, let me tell everyone about Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props and is available in a ton of markets. Plus, plenty of opportunities to win in their daily MLB contest. And of course, make sure to enter Best Ball Mania 4, where first place gets $3 million. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com. But make sure to use that promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus of up to $100. Again, that's UnderdogFantasy.com using promo code SGPN. All right, getting over to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this team last season was the most surprising team, at least in my eyes, and I think for a lot of people as well. Last season, they finished up with a record of 9-8, second in the NFC West, got a playoff spot at the wild card to fall to the San Francisco 49ers in that first game. But we saw the rumors.
The writing was on the wall, you know.
It's crazy. I kind of go back and look at like how did that even happen with the Seahawks last season? But a big reason, Geno Smith absolutely turned it around. His career turned around. I think when we saw that Geno Smith was named the head coach, the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks team, I think everybody ran to bet their win total under just because of the history that he had with the New York Jets, right? But I think for Seahawks fans, it was a breath of fresh air to see what Geno Smith was able to do for this team. Obviously, won comeback player of their year last year, deserving slow. 9-8 last year. He gets the contract in this offseason, 3 years, $75 million to be the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks team. I really do like the roster, especially at the wide receiver position for this Seattle Seahawks team. Currently, their win total is sitting at, I believe it's 9.5. Yeah, 9.5 plus 195. Yeah, I see a 9.5.
It was 8.5, then it was 9. Now it's 9.5. People are crazy.
Plus 195 to win the division. They are minus 120 to make the playoffs. Conference odds 13-1, and Super Bowl odds currently sitting at 30-1 for the Seattle Seahawks. Katie, last season, Geno Smith, biggest surprise, I think, in the NFL, rightfully so. Like I mentioned, won comeback player of the year. Do you expect some regression from Geno Smith coming into this season for the Seahawks team, or do you expect him to be as competent as he was last season? Because that first, I think, 7 to 8 games, he was absolutely fantastic. There was a little bit of fall off for Geno Smith in the second half of the year. But what are you expecting from at least Geno and the Seahawks this upcoming season?
Well, one, obviously, look, I'm a 49ers fan, so we don't always necessarily get along with the 12th man, but all respect to Geno Smith to have the career that he's had, and then to finally get that starting spot and to get paid a real contract. And he played so well that he had the 12th man booing Russell Wilson, which I never thought that I would see in my lifetime. So I do really like Geno Smith, and I do really appreciate what he did last season. But Munaf, you hit on it. He already started to regress. The way that he started the season versus the way that he ended the season were entirely different people. Weeks 1 through 5, he was a number 1 PFF grade, number 5 EPA per play out of 35 quarterbacks. Weeks 6 through 19, he was number 21 PFF grade, number 21 in EPA per play out of 40 quarterbacks. So he already started to decline as the season went on. I think, again, people didn't expect much out of him. After the first 4 games, defenses started to plan for him a little bit better. Now, we are talking about the Seahawks. When we talk about people who are well coached, Pistol Pete is an incredible coach. Okay. He's given me a lot of heartache over the years of my life. So he's another coach that you don't want to that you don't want to count out. They had an incredible draft this year, and I think they
Yes.
drafted really well depth wise. Obviously, you've got Jackson Smith in Jigba, who's going to be really big for them, but you already have Tyler Lockett and you already have DK Metcalf, and then you've got the run game. Kenneth Walker III, I think, is going to have a hell of a season this year. This 9.5 is insane. I thought they would push at 9. This is a 9-win team this season. I think they've got 4 games from the Rams and gimmies, from the Cardinals. The Niners swept them last year. That's possible that happens, but it's also possible that we split. We've seen that happen in a lot of years. I think this is a 9-win team. I would take that under. I would take them to make the playoffs at -120. I think that when you look at their odds, they have the 6th best odds to to win the entire conference and advance to the Super Bowl. So they should definitely be able to secure a wild card spot. I'm not going to take them over this 9.5. I can't do that. They have gone over their win total in 4 of the last 5 seasons, but this is 3.5 now games higher than it was last year. Now they have won 9+ games in 10 of the last 11 seasons. I think they had a great draft. They got a lot of depth. They got a lot of good players. I do think that we see some regression from Geno, and take him to take the playoffs, but I wouldn't take him over 9.5. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. They had an absolutely fantastic draft. They had 2 first-round draft picks. They got cornerback Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, and then, like you mentioned, from Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba, to add to their wide receiving group of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf already. In free agency, they added some key pieces to that defense as well, right? Draymond Jones was a big coveted name that they paid and added to their defense. The return of Bobby Wagner to this team as well. They also added Mario Edwards Jr. And Devin Bush as well to kind of give them some depth at that linebacking position. So, and they still have Quentin Diggs in the secondary along with Jamal Adams, and hopefully those 2 guys are able to stay healthy because they've been injured more often than not over the last several seasons. But look, I mean, the pieces are there for both this team on both sides of the football, and unfortunately for them, or fortunately, we can say, like we mentioned, they should get wins against the Cardinals and the Rams. But this division does play the AFC North, like I mentioned, also the AFC East, the NFC East. But the 3 games outside of those 2 divisions, it's the Titans, it's the Lions, and it's the Panthers. So they possibly could get 2 out of those 3 games against those opponents outside of the 2 divisions that they are playing this season. I really do like this roster, but at 9.5, I'm with Katie here. I feel like it feels like a stretch high for this team. So go ahead.
And Munaf, the one thing with the 49ers, which we'll get into, they're traveling a lot of miles this year. But, the only team that's traveling more miles is the Seahawks. So they're going to have less rest than a lot of these opponents. And like you said, AFC North and the NFC East. And then you're traveling all that much. That's tough. And what's going on with their O-line? Maybe Rod can talk to us about that.
Talk to me, Rod, about the Seahawks.
Listen, on this win total, the hook just keeps bringing me back to the under here. I can't even. Yeah, it's not, to me, if they win 10, that's fantastic. I'll take the L on that, but I don't know that they're going to get to 10. So, and I mean, Katie just nailed it with the Geno Smith evaluation. It's, yes, we've seen these quarterbacks come out, have career years, and then they get paid. And then next thing you know, it's like, whoa, what happened? We just paid you all this money. And we remembered that you were the quarterback from the last 10 years that wasn't getting this done. No, Justin, I do not fear the Seahawks. Yes, like Katie said, we may be able to split 1-1. That's fine, but I'm not necessarily fearing them going into the future. So, and this O-line too, they're going to have to block for the run game because obviously they love the run game too. But if Geno takes a step back like we expect him to, he's going to try to dance around the pocket, and then the O-line's not going to be able to necessarily stay with him to try to give him the time that he needs, right? And then if he tries to break the pocket, the O-line's got to block for him too. I just feel like this is an uphill battle for the Seahawks this year. They set their bar high. Now Seahawks fans are expecting this to happen again, and I just don't think it's going to happen again.
It makes me nervous with what both you, Rod, and Kate, you mentioned about their offensive line, because that offensive line comes in ranked number 25 this upcoming season. Their skill positions outside of the quarterbacks, receivers number 4th coming into this season, and running back group number 7. And in the secondary group, like we mentioned, is ranked number 8. So they have at least 3 positions that are ranked inside the top 10. for this upcoming season. So I think if you liked the 8.5, you probably missed a number now. You probably can find a 9 out there, for definitely shop around, but I'm starting to see this number move towards 9.5. And I think I'm with both Rod and Katie here on the under 9.5 for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, and Munaf, there's that saying, nothing matters if the O-line sucks. How is Geno going to have another breakout season if he's not protected? So you can look, if you look at a lot of stats, that what you just said, what they ranked 21st in terms of their O-line, like that is something that Seahawks fans should be concerned about. And that's something that you definitely have to take into consideration, because it's just hard to do anything if you don't have protection.
And again, I think it's all predicated on like Geno Smith. Like last year, he led the NFL in completion percentage at 69.8%.
Yes.
Right? He threw for
amazing.
Yeah, he threw for 4,000 plus yards last season, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And from the information and the research that I did on the Seahawks, that he had a lot of turnover luck, that there was balls that he threw down the field where they could have been picked off. But again, when we talk about injury luck and turnover luck, at least the turnover luck was in favor of Geno Smith. I think we're all here expecting Geno to take at least a step back, and it might be a little difficult for him to duplicate what he did last season. Would I be shocked if he's able to do what he did last season upcoming this year? No, but I think I'm in the favor of him taking a step back here for this upcoming season, and only because of the wide receiver group, right? We talked about DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and you added Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? So I think that, and again, if you need to protect Geno Smith, you have that running back group as well, right? I'm expecting, like Katie mentioned, a big season from Kenneth Walker III for the Seahawks team. Katie, anything else you want to add about the Seahawks?
No, I mean, I'm excited to see. And look, I think, Rod, you can agree, as a 49ers fan, you can't really ever fully count the Seahawks out, especially when they're coached by someone like Pete Carroll, who for a while, had the 49ers number. So I'm interested, we're all in agreements here that we're going to see a little bit of regression from Geno Smith, but they did have a great draft, and they do have a lot of key pieces. So I think they're going to win some games. I think this is a 9-win team, and we're going to I think taking them to make the playoffs is a good bet, but that's about it. I would take Geno Smith under on his passing yards too, right? Because it's pretty high. It's 3,800 and a half. And let's say they are going to be running the ball a little bit more. We think that Kenneth Walker III is going to have a big game, even though you have all of those pass catchers here. If you don't have good protection, they may be running the ball a little bit more. So I don't know that he's going to hit that number.
And they also drafted Zach Charbonnet as well. I believe the second or third round to add to that running back room as well. And Pete Carroll, and I think this is where the kind of the disconnect was between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. Is like, I mean, we saw, people saying let Russ cook, but I think that for Pete Carroll, it was just stuck in his old ways about like running the football. So I think that only helps towards taking the under on Geno Smith's passing yardage for this upcoming season. Rod, any final thoughts for the Seahawks?
Go ahead, Katie.
Go ahead, Katie. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say the same can be said with Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, everyone says Jimmy couldn't throw the ball. Shanahan didn't let him throw the ball. And it wasn't until before he got injured, he started letting Jimmy air it out. And we saw him, making some great throws. And then, of course, by the time Purdy got in, Shanahan changed his mind and allowed Purdy to throw the ball more. And, I'm obviously very passionate about Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think what
for different
Pete
reasons.
did to Russ, Shanahan kind of did to Jimmy. And I think they're starting to change their minds a little bit more and actually let their quarterbacks cook.
Well, I will say, though, that last season, what we saw Russ cooking was when I get in the kitchen and start cooking ramen. And when I add tofu in there, and I feel like I've cooked a fantastic meal, and it was really just ramen and tofu. That was what we saw out of Russell Wilson last year.
I wouldn't let Russ anywhere near my kitchen.
Getting over to the team that we're all waiting to talk about, or at least Rod and Katie are, the San Francisco 49ers last season ended the season on a 10-game win streak in the regular season. They ran away with the division in the second half of the year with a 13-4 record. They went all the way to the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where the injury to Brock Purdy occurred. Could have been a different outcome if he would have stayed healthy, but hindsight is 2020. But coming into this season, they have a win total right now of 10.5. They are the odds-on favorites to win the division at -160. I believe they are the third favorite to win the conference of the NFC at, let's see here. Where do I have it? Plus 400. And they are 10-1 to win the Super Bowl. I will be as minimal and talk about this team because I do have the two 49er faithfuls here. I just want one fucking season where this team is healthy. That's all I want to see from this San Francisco 49er team, because they have just been riddled by so many injuries. It just I don't know what you guys feel as a 49ers fan with all those injuries, but it just kind of breaks my heart to see all the injuries that have occurred with this team. But Katie, it seems like Brock Purdy is all good to go from the reports that we saw. Jimmy Garoppolo has moved on to the Las Vegas Raiders. Talk to me about your Niners. What are you expecting? Obviously, I know you were expecting them to hoist the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year, but talk to me about the Niners.
So, it's so interesting. Obviously, we know I'm passionate about Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm glad that Mrs. Old Fashioned Football is also passionate. Most women are, I will say. Most women are very passionate about Jimmy Garoppolo. But what's so interesting is that Jimmy Garoppolo was also cleared and is practicing, and the Niners and the Raiders now have their joint practices in training camp. And it's like poor Jimmy Garoppolo just can't get away from the 49ers quarterback controversy, because now he's going to have to play against Brock Purdy, in joint practices and then again in the preseason. So my heart goes out to him. But as much as I love Jimmy Garoppolo, in Brock Purdy, we trust. I mean, I absolutely love this kid. He's got talent, he's got determination, and he has the work ethic to be great. And we saw a short sample size of that last season. I haven't seen, and Rod, I don't think you have either, I haven't seen the 49ers offense run that well in years. And even as someone who is a Jimmy Garoppolo fan, the kid came in, he beat the Dolphins, then he beat Tom Brady and the Bucks, then he went into Seattle and won in Seattle, won 2 playoff games. He has more passing yards than any other Niners quarterback outside of Joe Montana in a playoff game. And that was a playoff game, I believe, that was versus the Dallas Cowboys. The 49ers are absolutely stacked. They added to the defense. We've got Hargrave now there, which I'm so excited to see him. I think Drake Jackson is going to have a better year. I'm so excited to see what he's going to do in training camp. He started off great last year and then kind of, wasn't available in the last few games. We got rid of McGlinchey, who I think, Rod, Niners fans, we kind of had a love-hate with him because where did all of our injuries happen? Oh, on the right side, because nobody's getting past the left side with Trent Williams lined up over there. But, I hope we get some more consistency on the right side. You've got Christian McCaffrey and guys, the 49ers were 10-0 straight up in the 10 regular season games that Christian McCaffrey started in 2022. And I think Christian McCaffrey was so valuable to the 49ers and made such a huge difference that people forget that he was a mid-season acquisition. So what can we expect from a Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy offense? And let's not forget, Kittle played better under Purdy. We haven't seen Kittle have a season like that. It's multiple touchdown games, and Bosa coming off of his defensive player of the year. Yes, I know he's not at training camp right now, but from what I've heard, no one is worried that he's not going to get paid and start this season. I think he'll be the highest defensive player in the league right now. This team, to me, is a 12-win team. So I like this over. They were at 11.5. It's been bet down to 10.5. Of course, we like that number better. Don't bet them minus 220 now to win the division. I'm not laying that money. It was 175 earlier, a little bit better odds there. But this team is going to be good this year. Again, health is wealth. But we've got 3 quarterbacks, and Rod, I'm sure you've been paying attention to what's happening in training camp. Purdy looked pretty good yesterday, and I know a lot of people, he's got some rust. He just had surgery 5 months ago. Okay, you're not going to get a perfect guy. It'll be interesting to see the quarterback battle between Lance and Sam Darnold. A lot of people, the 49ers fans you either love Lance or somehow you hate Lance. And I don't really understand that either. And people even want to put me in like a Lance hater, which I'm not. Was I against giving up all that to draft the number 3 overall? Yes, because I thought we had a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. And then when you see Brock Purdy do what he did, no, we're not going backwards and putting Lance in when, yes, it's a very, the sample size of Trey Lance is so small. It's small in college. We barely saw anything in college. And then it's small in the NFL. We had 2 games where he looked like a rookie quarterback, which of course you expect from him. He was nervous. He didn't make good decisions. He threw in some tight coverage. Brock Purdy came in and he threw in some tight coverage too. And you want to talk about getting some luck on turnovers. Brock Purdy had a few of those. Okay. That could have gone the other direction. But Brock Purdy just looked decisive, which I've never seen from Lance. And so I love Brock Purdy. I think this is a 12-win team. I think that the Eagles are going to regress. They won 13 games last year. Their schedule was easy. It is a lot tougher this year. I love the Niners to win the conference. But then you got to get past Patrick Mahomes, which, as we know, better than anybody, Rod. That's a tall order. But give me the order. Give me the over on this. And we can, of course, talk some props. But end rant for Mox.
Rod, take it away.
And listen, you talk about first of all, I think the Niners made a gigantic mistake anyways, taking Alex Smith instead of Aaron Rodgers. That was mistake number 1. But to your point, Katie, we have, as Niner fans, suffered through so many years where we felt this close, right? But it was either Alex Smith holding us back and then Colin Kaepernick, whatever. But on the field, Colin Kaepernick had electric moments, but there was never that spark. There was never that feeling that this was going to get us over the hump. This was going to get us to the top of the heap, right? Jimmy Garoppolo came in and won all those games, was undefeated. We felt, outstanding. And then he gets hurt and takes us a step back. I feel like this team is the most put together now. And with Brock Purdy, we saw what we saw out of the early Jimmy Garoppolo years, right? Where he came in, he provided a spark, and we thought, okay, this is going to be great. But we always, especially as Niner fans, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, that other shoe dropped. Unfortunately, Brock Purdy, that shoe dropped as well. But I feel like there's a lot of enthusiasm coming in. I feel like there's a lot of great stuff. And as far as Trey Lance is concerned, I felt like we should have taken Justin Fields over Trey Lance because Trey Lance as an FCS quarterback, that was North Dakota or South Dakota State, one of the Dakota states. I can't remember right now. He was a jackrabbit.
Forgettable.
Exactly. It wasn't necessarily what we were looking for to take our franchise to the next level. Was he fantastic there? Yeah, but he was playing FCS teams.
In how many games? Yeah. He had 16 games or something?
Yeah. It was 7's an understatement. But it was not. So it was ridiculous. And so I was always questioning that move as well. Is there talent there? Of course. Yes. But as we saw, it's going to take a lot longer to bring him along. Whereas Brock Purdy jumped in, and then now you give him Christian McCaffrey. Like you said, you got George Kittle there. That offense is stacked. The defense is just ridiculous. Scary. We know how good. Yeah, teams can't do anything against this Niners defense. Well, except for the Chiefs and except for the Eagles, but
and the Eagles, I guess, the Eagles fans are like, oh, our defense did our job. That's why, that's why Purdy was injured. I'm like, oh God, I can't listen to you guys anymore, but
I can't either. But I agree with you. Whatever the over is on this one, like you said, it's 10.5. I'm looking at, I would definitely go to the over on this one because the over is juiced at plus 125. Like that's pretty good for a team that we think is going to get 12, 13 wins. So, I definitely take the over on this. I love the conference, obviously, because who else is out there lurking in the shadows other than the Eagles?
It's just the Eagles, and I think they're headed for some regression.
I agree with you on that one. I mean, I like
their defense has changed a lot. And they lost both of their coordinators, too. Gannon, I'm sure they're happy to get rid of, but Shane Steichen is going to be a huge loss to that offense, especially with Jalen Hurts. We saw the regression that happened when Dable left Josh Allen and the interceptions that happened. We might see that happen with Jalen Hurts. And by the way, all respect to Jalen Hurts. That guy is a dog, and what he did in the Super Bowl was incredible. And I will not disrespect him personally, but I think Shane Steichen had a lot to do with it.
I think it was also, we talk about the acquisition of Christian McCaffrey. I think it took a lot of pressure off of Deebo Samuel having to be that guy on offense every single week before he got there, right? And I think that's a great compliment between CMC and Deebo that, there's not pressure on both those guys because when CMC was with the Panthers, he was pretty much the offense, right? With Deebo, you were expecting him to go for 100 plus receiving yards every game and at least 50 rushing yards every single game for this offense to have success. But I think the one thing, Katie, you mentioned is that when Brock Purdy became the starting quarterback, that Kyle Shanahan unleashed him to throw the football down the field even more. And we saw that in the number of points that this team was putting up when he became the starting quarterback. They're automatically putting up 30-plus points per game. The only game I believe they didn't was in the playoff game against Dallas, and then they scored 21 against Seattle, where, again, they really didn't need to go out there and score 30-plus points. So the dynamic of the offense changed, especially when Brock Purdy came in as a starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers team. And this Niners team, again, comes into this season with the 5th easiest schedule in the entire National Football League. Katie, you said you had some player props for the 49ers?
Yes. Well, to go back to what you said about Debo, let's not forget the contract negotiations with Debo last year were really, really ugly. And Debo did say that it was a distraction for him in the offseason. And he didn't really start last season on his best foot, but he is motivated this year. Kyle Shanahan said he's never had a grown man send him so many shirtless photos, but he is ripped and he is ready. And, I think we're going to see really good numbers out of Debo this year. And, it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people in fantasy on my podcast, MoxieBets, and I've heard multiple times not to take Christian McCaffrey as your top running back, because Shanahan certainly runs the running back room by committee, right? We've got Elijah Mitchell, we've got Jordan up in that mix too, and yes, they are going to be splitting a lot of carries. And Christian McCaffrey is the Swiss Army knife, and when we've seen him do absolutely everything, he runs the ball. He's one of the best backs that can pass catchers for running backs. We've seen him throw a touchdown pass. We've seen him block. He's just insane. Put him in there and he could pretty much do anything. So take Christian McCaffrey for the offensive player of the year. He's the favorite. It's at plus 1,100, but it's honestly not that chalky. When you see this man in 17 games, and I don't believe that he's going to get injured, because I do think that Elijah Mitchell and Jordan, I'm forgetting his last name. I'm blanking on it right now. Are going to be able to split some of those carries. So take him over on his rushing yards. I think it's disrespectful. It's like 875.5. He's definitely going over that. Take him for offensive player of the year. And what I find the most interesting is George Kittle's touchdown passes. The line is at 5.5 and it's at plus 110. George Kittle had a career high of 11 regular season touchdown passes last year. 7 of those came with Purdy. I like to call it the Iowa corn connection. The two of them together are getting touchdowns. The fact that it's only at 5.5 is at plus 110. That is my favorite bet for the Niners this year, because if Purdy is a starter, which all signs are pointed, that's what it's going to be. Kittle's going to have another absolutely dominant year. So that is way too low for our guy, George.
There was moments last year where there were some George Kittle props that I really did like from a week-to-week basis. And I had to just get validation from Katie. I would send her a message. I was like, hey, if this is what I like for George Kittle, she would give me the green light. So I think all of those did cash when Katie gave me the green light for the Jimmy Garoppolo props. Rod, thoughts on the prop bets for Katie? Anything else you want to add for the Niners before we get into some best bets?
Well, I tell you, as far as Christian McCaffrey goes, it's exciting because Katie, I think the last time I remember being this excited about a lead back was Frank Gore. And that was literally the last
my favorite.
time I was excited. Right. And since then, I mean, it's been a smattering of great running backs, but we've never had that anchor, the guy that's like, yes, this is our back for the next 4 or 5 seasons, right? It was Mostert was okay. And I don't know, just to me, it just never felt like that Frank Gore type of a guy. Christian McCaffrey, this is that guy. This is that guy that we can say he's in the backfield. He's going to stay in the backfield. So, you're right. His rushing number, disrespectful for 17 games. Take the over on that for sure. And then for George Kittle, I mean, him and Debo now and Brandon Ayuk, all these guys are just going to be so much more relaxed now that they've got Brock Purdy back. This is all training camp starting with him now. We get a full camp with Brock Purdy. Watch out.
Let's go.
Niners, according to Warren Sharp, positional group rankings: running backs number 1, receivers number 3, front 7 number 2, secondary number 12, and Kyle Shanahan comes in ranked as the 4th best head coach in the entire National Football League, which leads us now to wrap up this NFC West division. Let's throw out some best bets for this division. It can be anything, prop bets, division winner, win totals, miss playoffs, conference odds, whatever you want to give out to our listeners. Rod, you want to lead us off here?
I like Katie's
Let's go.
5.5. I can't argue with that. I mean, everything else is gravy, but over 5.5 for George Kittle. Hammer that, please. That's gonna cash. That's gonna cash by week 8. I guarantee you right now.
Literally. I can't believe it's at plus money.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, right? Like 11 touchdowns, 7 of those came from Brock Purdy, and we're expecting Brock Purdy to be the full-time starter, and he is going to be the starter for this 49ers team for the entirety of the season, unless something catastrophic happens. He has an injury or just absolutely sucks. But
he put it out there. Stop him.
It's not going to happen. Don't worry. I'm going to quickly read this off.
I'm worried about week 1, though, Rod. I'm worried about week 1. I don't know that I want Purdy up against TJ Watt out the gates there, but
Well, I tell you what I want Brock Purdy to be able to maneuver himself around and skillfully get away from TJ Watt. You're right. I mean, obviously we're going to need to set up some extra protection in that, but yeah, it's a little scary. Hopefully he can move around and stay away from trouble.
Katie, best bet for the division?
Take the Niners to win the conference. I believe it's at plus 350. Take George Kittle over 5.5 at plus 110, and Christian McCaffrey over on his rushing yards, and then offensive player of the year at plus 1100. All of those hit, by the way, all at good plus money. You're gonna be riding high this year, this end of the season.
All right, my best bet. I'm just gonna fade the worst team in this division, the Cardinals. Give me the 4.5 under. Definitely shop around. There may be some 5s out there, but it just makes a lot of sense what we talked about with the quarterback position, right? Even if Kyler Murray comes back, I think it'll still take him a game or two to kind of get his feet back under him, right? Especially when you're coming off of a torn ACL, you're a little timid and you're still trying to, get up to game speed and things like that. Again, it feels like a transition year for the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of roster turnover. You have a new head coach, a rookie new head coach. Coordinators are new as well. You lost a lot of key pieces. Your positional rankings are some of the worst in the entire National Football League. So I expect this team to at least at bare minimum 1 top 5 pick. If my Texans are going to be atrocious as well, they might just have 2 top 5 picks coming into the next year's draft. And again, like we mentioned, Caleb Williams' name has been rumored or is going to be the one quarterback that all these teams that need a quarterback are going to be after. And I think the Cardinals just may be in that conversation. And again, they may want to move on from Kyler Murray as well. So that will be my best bet. I'll take the Cardinals under 4.5 wins for this NFC West division. All right, that is going to wrap it up for our first divisional preview for the upcoming NFL season, the NFC West. Katie, anything you want to plug, and then let our people know where they can find you?
Yeah. All right. So you can find me on CBS Sports HQ on SportsLine every Monday through Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. And you can find that on Paramount Plus, the CBS Sports app, or CBSSports.com. I have my MoxieBets podcast through Omaha Productions and ESPN, which is on ESPN's YouTube channel. That's every Monday and Thursday, usually post in the late afternoon. And then I'm also on the Pick6 podcast, and we are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. We've just now gone back to live show, so I got to actually hop on that here pretty soon, and that is on the CBS Sports YouTube channel as well. So I got my hands in everything this year, but I'm just so excited that football is back, and I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. I'm very passionate about the 49ers, and I feel good about this season, which I say every season.
One of the hardest working people in sports media and in the betting industry, Katie Mox. Rod, anything else, my man?
Nope, just I'm on X at RJ Villagomez. There's a link in the bottom. Everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. I was doing some soccer videos for a while for Odd Shopper. Got my Fast Money show coming out later on this week too with the 4 Frequency Sake Network. We're back. We're back, Munaf. Excited to be back.
Yes, NFL is back again. If you haven't already subscribed to the NFL Gambling Podcast YouTube channel, now is the time. We'll have division previews 2 a week leading up to the season with the various hosts on the NFL Gambling Podcast. So do us a favor and go ahead and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Sorry, guys. At SportsNerd824. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.